Okay, well, hello. Welcome to ENGL 200. I think you probably had a chance to look at some of the materials for the class at this point or by this point. Let me introduce myself. I am your professor, Brian May. Feel free to call me Professor. That'll keep things simple, won't it? Um, and feel free to call each other by your first names. Feel more than free to do that. We have to create community, don't we? We have to do what we can to make up for the fact of anonymity, which is created by a completely asynchronous online course, such as we are going to have this semester. I've taught this before, let me mention that, and had a lot of success with this class. I felt that my students got a lot out of it, and I see no reason why we should not be able to recapitulate that success this semester and maybe even overgo it and have an even better class, right? Despite the fact that we're not going to be seeing each other too much, and most of the work is going to be done solo, as we know, right? As we know about these kinds of classes at this point. Well, this is, again, an intro video. Welcome, ENGL 200. Make sure you're in the right place. I'm sure you are. The machine makes sure of that, doesn't it? And please watch this video to its conclusion because it explains a lot of things about how the course is going to be run day in and day out, week in and week out, right? I'll try to keep it brief. I think we've all watched a lot of videos of this kind at this point. So here we go. If you would, in order to make this, I mean, what I will do is, you don't really need to do it, but I mean, feel free to open in a separate window or print out, which I think would be the best way to do it, your copies of the syllabus and of the coursework and whatnot that I might be referring to, just in case you have any notes that you want to write actually on the document. Or you could, of course, always write those on a pad separately, but I'll be going over some stuff. I'll try to do it quickly, as I said before. And you can always go back to this video and rewatch it, but some of this stuff you want to, I think it's mostly self-evident right there on the documents. But you never know. There might be a little clarifying comment that you want to make at this point or that. So without further ado, let's go. Okay, so here's the syllabus. I think you probably know how to read one of these by now, but let's go over it kind of quickly. The syllabus for ENGL 200.2, Literary Study, Research, and Criticism, Spring 2021. There you see my name, my bricks and mortar office. Who knows? Maybe we could at some point meet in person. That's where we would meet. The office hours that I now have are virtual office hours from noon to 1 p.m. on Tuesdays and by appointment. I think most of you, if you want to speak with me, my guess is many of you at least will choose the appointment option, which I want you to feel free to do at any time. In fact, given the often that this sort of sense of anonymity that you can get in a class like this, checking in with me now and then, even if you just have a little question, trust me, I would be very happy to speak with you and have a little bit of at least cyber contact that way, right? Well, down below you have some email addresses. The first one, the mail.niu.edu address, is the one that you want to use if you have a choice between those two. And it's the one that I check very often, but I wanted to include another one because we all know that Outlook now and then becomes sluggish mysteriously, becomes very slow. So the course description, again, I think you've had a chance to read through some of these materials, probably read through the syllabus, probably read the initial description of the course when you signed up for the course. 200 is designed to acculturate prospective and beginning English majors. Our emphasis will be on, and I'm not even going to finish reading through it. I will let you do that on your own. You will very quickly see what the course is all about, it seems to me. We're going to begin with Antigone. I think you've already begun. By the time that you watch this video, you will have begun reading Antigone. You may have finished it at that point. We're going to end up with 21st century works of literature. So we're going to make the span with respect, the whole span of the centuries with respect to literature in this introductory course. But the focus, of course, is as much or even more on research and criticism than it is on literature, even though, of course, the ambition ultimately is to talk about literature, right? To study literature. Literary study is the principal phrase up above, right? So in any event, let's, that's not really an introduction to the content of the course, which I'm not going to attempt in this introductory video. That will be attempted later, right? If it's even required. So let's move on to some of the nuts and bolts having to do with what you'll be asked to do. The course description, for example, the required texts. Again, my guess is many of you already have the books at this point because this information has been available for several days. But the gist of it is by far the most crucial of these books is the Norton Introduction to Literature, the shorter edition. If you possibly can, the 13th edition of this book by Kelly J. Mays, no relationship to me. Of course, she has an S on the end of her name, right? So you never would have thought that. The 12th edition should also work just fine. And I've had students get by with 11th and even 10th editions. I know one of you asked me about this. Could we go for an earlier edition? Definitely the 12th. Prefer the 13th. And we are talking about the shorter edition. Believe it or not, there is a longer edition, which is, 2,000 pages. And we're not necessary to get that edition. So try to get your hands on the 13th edition. I am aware that it may take a few days to get these books. From what I understand, the bookstore might even be out of them. It seems to me some one of you told me. So, what you would want to do at that point is I'm assuming they have them on back order, but there's also the possibility of, as we know, in fact, the strong probability that you could find an inexpensive copy of the text online, right? I hope not Amazon, but maybe Amazon or half price books or what have you. Okay, so try to get that as soon as possible. I'm aware it may be a little while before you're able to get a hold of the book. So, for example, I gave a copy of Antigone. I provided such a copy, an actual online copy of a good translation, not the same translation that we have in the Norton Introduction to Literature, but that's almost by design. Some nice things happen when we have certain students reading one translation, other students reading a different one. Nice little issues arise that point at the question of translation itself and of the status, like the ontological status of the work of art. Anyway, another book, the MLA Handbook, 8th edition. My guess is many of you already own this. And I realize that there are versions, ebook versions of this handbook that are available online that may not even require that you spend any money. I'm going to leave that up to you. Then, of course, a glossary of literary terms, 9th edition or later edition, but it's an expensive book. And I must tell you, you will probably be able to get by with this 1997 edition, which I actually have a link to it in the bottom of the info drawer. So if you don't want to cough up the money for that glossary of literary terms that I believe is being overcharged for, I will admit that by Cengage, there may be ways of getting by just fine and spending a little bit less money, maybe spending no money on that particular item. So I'm certainly allowing that, and I will try to make up for, if I assign something, a particular literary term that's in this glossary that is in the later editions, but not, for example, in the 1997 edition, I will tend to post, especially if you guys ask me to, I will tend to post the more contemporary copy or a more contemporary version of that literary term from the newer glossary. I'll post that in the information drawer or maybe in the content drawer and label it so that you can have access to it, even if you bought the 19 or have procured the 1997 edition instead. Okay, now we're going to read Kafka, which is always fun, right? No idea how many of you have read the Metamorphosis before. Here again, translation is going to become an issue, which is an interesting issue, it seems to me. That is often encountered, especially in our new globalized world, where so many languages are kind of banging up against each other. So in any event, that book you don't even need to buy, right? It's, I have a really nice University of Pennsylvania PDF of it that I'm providing for you. That you have the link right there on the syllabus, right? Okay, so the last item on the syllabus that needs any attention is the DRC statement, rate accommodations. If you need an accommodation for this class, please contact the Disability Research Center as soon as possible. The DRC coordinates accommodations for students with disabilities. I think you know where it's located, the Campus Life Building, Suite 180, You can call them on the phone. You can write them by means of an email address that I'm providing. And what you want to do is, just after you've contacted them, you want to contact me, especially once they've gotten back in touch with you and you have arranged your situation with them. That is a good time to let me know what's going on, because it's very difficult for me to provide accommodations if I don't know what they have and what you have arrived at as proper. So try to do that earlier rather than later if that's a part of what will be happening for you. Okay, let's move on. Okay, here is the coursework, course format, what have you. I will be providing a master schedule as well that will give you due dates for the various these items below, which of course are listed. For example, numbers 3, 4, and 5. When is the midterm? When are the 1 to 1.5 page assignments? But I'm getting a little ahead of myself. But the point is, you're going to get a larger schedule, a master schedule for these due dates, as well as a granular schedule, which I will be presenting to you in a few moments, right? What's going to be on these schedules? Well, one of the things will be a specification, of course, of what I want you to read every week so that you can take part in our weekly discussion board, right? Which my impression is that most of you have had some experience with discussion boards, and you know the how-to of the discussion board, which on Blackboard means you go over to discussions. It's labeled pretty reasonably, and you hit discussions, and it becomes pretty self-explanatory at that point. These are a big part of this course, right? The weekly discussion board participation is actually worth 25% of the class, right? So what this involves is, there's going to be a routine. I'll be talking about this in the context of a particular example here in a few moments, right? Which is going to be the granular weekly, bi-weekly, in the case of the next module, so to speak, the next bit of business that we have to do, or in fact, our beginning bit of business. It will be a bi-weekly schedule that I will present to you here in a few moments. Often they will be weekly. But what these schedules will have on them is, in fact, the weekly routine, right? Which will be usually by Sunday afternoon at 5 p.m. I will have posted a few questions, usually 3 of them. I begin posting them Friday at noon. You choose just one, not all 3. I hope you're listening. Just one of the items. This is all, of course, clarified on the rubric of the items themselves when you actually go to the discussion board. These instructions will be repeated, but you choose just one and you write a substantial, and I mean substantial, 1-paragraph response by Tuesday at 5 p.m. Remember, these will all be posted by Sunday at 5 p.m. and I'll begin posting on the Friday before that Sunday. That Tuesday of that week at 5 o'clock, I would like you to have your substantive and substantial 1-paragraph, 5, 6, 7, 8 sentences full of detailed commentary and quotation from the text in question in response to the question that I ask of your choice. I would like that by Tuesday at 5 p.m. Then, of course, all of you will have responded, in any typical week by 5 p.m. And there will be a number of these comments, right? Like we have 22 people in the class. I presume there will be 22 such paragraph, let's call them responses and not comments, that will be sitting there visible to you. By Thursday at 5 p.m., what I would like you to do is write a brief comment on one of your classmates' responses of your choice, okay? Which is to say, the second thing I would like you to do every week on the discussion board is, in fact, respond to something that was written by one of your classmates, and that is posted by Tuesday at 5 p.m. And you have until Thursday at 5 p.m. to write that response, which is another paragraph. It doesn't have to be maybe quite as substantive and substantial, quite as long as your own, substantial and substantive response due by Tuesday at 5 p.m., right? But it should be something that is, in fact, as I put it here, constructively critical. Can be a celebration, can be, in fact, a polite disagreement where you quote material, in fact, quote details from literary text in support of your own point. I wanted to mention here at this point in our discussion, or in my monologue rather, on the business of the course, that this weekly discussion board participation grade is, it's the numbers indicate 25%. It's really, really important, isn't it? It's 1/4 of your grade for the semester. Nevertheless, I understand that things arise now and then, right? In the middle of a long semester, towards the end of a long semester. I trust not in the beginning of a long semester. That's not a good time to, in fact, use those 2 weeks, 2 weeks off that I am permitting every one of you, right? No questions asked. You don't need to ask for permission. I will be keeping a close record of who doesn't respond, who does respond, who doesn't respond as well. And if you miss a week, I'm not going to say, hey, where were you? I'm just going to count that as one of your weeks. You miss a second week, I'm not going to ask you, hey, what happened? I'm just going to count that as your second week. And I'm not going to count off. The third time it happens, it's going to matter. And you probably will hear from me, but you might not. I mean, I will just, I've got 22 of you to keep together, to keep track of. And it might be very difficult for me to, I probably will get in touch with you if I see that third one, because of course that's at the point where a miss is quite consequential, right? I will have to, in fact, record a 0 for that week. So it will begin to chip away at what may be up to that point a very good discussion board participation grade. So you want to avoid that. You want to be consistent in your participation in our weekly discussion boards. We're not going to have one absolutely every week throughout the semester, but we will probably have 10 or 11 or 12 of them. And you want to make sure that you contribute to all but 2. Let's say we have 12, then you want to definitely do 10. Okay, so enough on that. I think you know about discussion boards and all the rest and how important they are and how to do it. But if you don't, that's something that we could talk about privately. Feel free to send me an email message if you're a little bit bewildered. What am I talking about? I should think that you would be able to figure this out, right? Okay, if you haven't had experience with these before, and I think most of you have had experience. Okay, so number 2, we're going to have reading quizzes. Now, one of those is due, if you're watching this Thursday afternoon, it is due tonight, right, by midnight. So you're going to have an experience of this rather quickly here. It's going to be a reading quiz on Antigone, as you know, which is something that I told you about, reminded you of in some announcements, right? And each reading quiz is going to cover the material assigned for the day on which you have the quiz, or the week on which you have the quiz, plus anything that since the past quiz. Now, that may seem a bit abstract at this point. What does that mean? When you look at the granular schedule, you will know. The other thing is I will be pointing out on the granular weekly schedules that you'll be getting that tell you exactly what you have to do for every week. I will be pointing out exactly what's on the quiz. I'll make that clear as a kind of quick reminder for you. But you should always know that when you have a quiz, it's, well, what's fair game? Everything since the last quiz, right? Usually the quizzes, so what I'm talking about these quizzes, what are they? What will they be? Short answer questions and identifications, okay? And I've already given you an example of such a quiz on, I think it's in the information drawer, so you might want to have a quick look at that. And what it does is give you some examples from this week. You're reading Antigone, it's some examples of the kinds of questions that you'll be asked on Antigone. So have a look at that and you'll know what to expect, the kind of thing to expect. I won't repeat those exact questions, but you'll know the kind of thing to expect on the actual quiz, which will be due on the 20th by midnight. All but 2 of these grades, by the way, will count. Let's say I give you 12. That will work out very well for me mathematically. What that means is I will count only 10. And, obviously I'll count the best 10, not the worst 10, the best 10. I'll drop the 2 lowest grades, which could occur, by the way. You may get one of your lower grades. I hope not both of them, and I certainly hope not more than 2. Could be acquired by you by your just simply neglecting to take a quiz. Just not taking a quiz that week will use up one of your misses. It's a little bit like the weekly discussion board participation grade, giving you 2 weeks off, 2 quizzes off, 2 discussion boards off. So you get 2 quizzes off, they don't hurt you at all, right? So, and you can use them whenever you want. And once again, no questions asked, which when you miss one, I'll just put a 0. What I will do is if you don't use those 2 misses, I'll just drop your 2 lowest grades. So what I found is that most students decide that they just want to take every single quiz and just, have the 10 best count. So that's a good strategy. So that's worth 15% of the grade. Okay, then moving on to the writing portion of the semester. Number three, 10% of these short 1 to 1.5 page assignments that we could call squibs, right, that we'll be talking about as they approach. And those will be due on the Sunday nights in question for that week. You'll have one of these due pretty soon. They'll be due by midnight if that's Sunday. Okay. Number four, a short literary analysis, a squib, which becomes a squib plus of a literary work on the syllabus, a draft which we revise and supplement a couple of times as we work towards an understanding of how to write a proper research paper. And what that is one of those 1.5 page assignments, or if neither one of them has really lent itself to such a use, a whole new paper, right? That is another one of those 1.5 page assignments that you develop a bit, okay? And try to turn into something a little bit longer, right? And it's something that we're going to work on, not throughout the entire semester, but through a number of weeks. And it will go through a number of permutations where you'll write something on your squib that will enlarge the squib and sharpen the squib and make it more comprehensive in its ambition and its coverage of the work and the issue that you're treating in your paper. And you'll submit it, and then I will respond. And we'll go through this sequence a couple of times. You get it back from me with my responses, and we'll try to take it to the next level, right, as we develop it a bit. So that's something that you will also see pointed out on, for example, the master schedule, and of course in the weekly granular schedules when they come out. I give one of those out every time a new module is in view, kind of like a new topic for the course comes into view. So it's usually every week or every couple of weeks typically every week you'll get a new one of those granular modular schedules, which I'm about to show you here in a minute. Okay, an example of such. And it points out, okay, it will point out when, like the second, the second expansion of the squib is due this week at Sunday. Yeah. So all this will be made very clear in a timely fashion so that you can get your work done. Okay, so number five, 15% of midterm exam, a few short writing assignments. And that week, certainly, we will not have a discussion board because in a sense, a discussion board, the writing portion of the discussion board will be taken up by the midterm exam. And then we have a final examination that will be a lot like the midterm examination, but a little bit longer. And that's at the end of the semester. The midterm will come a little bit after the midpoint in the semester. So if you have any questions about the coursework, again, do feel free, if you have any questions about anything, feel free to send me a message and I will get back to you. Okay, here is that granular schedule that I mentioned that is going to be so crucial in your performance of what's required of you this semester in this class. It will be posted, typically you'll look at the bottom right here, the very bottom of the right-hand column where it says end of the intro, move on to module 1. What that means is there will be a new subdrawer in the content drawer, which will say, clearly indicated that it is module 1. And what you will do is open it up and what you will find is another one of these granular weekly schedules that is devoted to that week and the work for that week. Okay, so this is a way of just putting it all on one page and making it very clear in sequence exactly what's required of you. All right, so it will be very crucial that you follow this and follow it closely. Here you will see, if you look over there on the left, now it's in tiny print, but I think you can read it. This is headed intro. This is the left column, and it says below, it says weeks 1 and 2, 116 to 129, and it says read Antigone and Trifles. Now this is, again, a bi-weekly, fairly unusual. I mean, there'll be a few more of these where I give you everything on for the next 2 weeks as opposed to just the next week. But more typically, I will give you in each module, each module's granular weekly schedule. We'll just have the stuff for that week, right? So anyway, we have 2 weeks here laid out for you, which is kind of good in a way because it gives you a sense of the sequence and how the sequence continues week by week. So if you look in the left-hand column, well, not all the way over, the middle column, I guess you would say, you'll notice how I lay it out for you. And again, I think you can figure this out for yourselves. But let me just quickly go through it. I say by Thursday, 1:20, that's today, 1:59 p.m., I want you to have read Antigone. You see, I'm assuming everybody has already figured this out and has been following it, right? Though I think I've given you some email notice of these requirements, independent of this introduction, right? So I think my guess is you've already read through this, but just to make sure that you have. What I say is read Antigone, have it all read, finish it. If you don't have the Norton, feel free to read the following good quality PDF. And indeed, you could go to that Wyckoff translation of Antigone, which is very, very good. And it would be the thing that you'd want to have a look at if you haven't gotten the book yet. If you do have the Norton, of course, you read the one in the Norton. So that's the first thing that's being asked of you to do all semester long, aside from listening, watching. If you look just below it over there on the left-hand side, in the second column, watching this video, which you are now doing. By Thursday, 1:20, 11:30 p.m. at the latest. By tonight, before you take the quiz, I think it'd be a good idea. Watch a video PowerPoint introductory lecture, which you're now doing, which is, I hope you found it marked. I think actually it has a 200 in front of that intro vid1, which is probably not going to be available until 2 p.m. Okay, on the 20th, on Thursday. So look to the right there, right across the way from it. You'll see this third one of the columns is not marked as the second one was, topics to read and watch, but rather learning activities and assessments in the contemporary parlance. And you will see that it points out like what you have to actually do aside from reading and watching and observing and absorbing and digesting, what you have to do in the way of like submitting things. Okay, and here we have it, Thursday on the 20th, that's today. Will be today by the time you're watching this. By 11:35 p.m., because it's a 25-minute quiz, you want to start. I'm going to give you 30 minutes, so maybe you want to start at 11:30. You want to begin quiz 1, which is already available, by the way. I even checked to make sure that it went through, but it was plotted and designed by the machine to be available by yesterday at 5 p.m. So I need to go and make sure that that did happen. I think it did. Begin quiz number 1, right? You'll have 25 minutes to complete it. Now, at the end of the 25 minutes, it auto-submits. So you don't want to start it at 11:45 and say, well, he'll give me an extra 10 minutes to get this done because it's out of my hands. It's a machine, right? So it auto-submits at midnight. So what you want to do is start it at 11:35 at the absolute latest if you want to use the full 25 minutes, which I think would be a good idea, right? Now, where do you find it? You go to assessments over there in the left-hand column on Blackboard. Look for test 1 once you press the button assessments. And you should be able to find it pretty easily. You already know that quiz 1 covers Antigone and Antigone only, and I've already told you a little bit about the kind of thing that might be on the quiz. Don't go and try to have a look at the quiz earlier to see what's on it so that you can do it, right? And we'll be prepared for the quiz. Obviously, the quizzes are designed to test whether you've read it or not to give you an avenue into the play as much as to actually test that you have made an independent attempt at reading the play in this case, on your own. So preliminary peeks are not allowed. I think the reasons are obvious. So once you open up that quiz, you're committed, okay? And you have 25 minutes until it auto-submits. So wait until you've read the play and feel ready to take the quiz to open up the Q1, or test 1 is I think what you will actually see in the drawer, the sub-drawer of assessments. Okay, back over in the left-hand column, you'll notice we move on to Friday, which is will be tomorrow, the 21st. By noon, I will begin to post. I usually have at least one of the questions posted by noon on the Friday for the next week. And this is our first discussion board. So you'll probably find an item there by noon on what will be tomorrow. Then by Sunday, okay, I will have all the rest of them posted. They will all be posted by 5 p.m. on Sunday so that you could begin the discussion board Sunday night, right at 5 o'clock if you wanted, or even sooner. You could even start Friday afternoon. If you like the first question, it's perfectly okay with me. And you've also done all the reading that you will need to do by that time, because you will see that down below, just below the Friday 1:21 at noon, I say by Sunday 1:23 at 5 p.m., read the following. Now, these are materials that are gathered in the content drawer. And what I would like you to do is read those because they will figure in the Blackboard discussion board items. The discussion board questions will be focused on Antigone, but also these readings, which I'm requiring that you have done by 5 o'clock on Sunday. so that you are ready when you have all the questions in hand, you have all the reading done, and you're ready to do the discussion board. The discussion board itself, as you know, is due Tuesday at 1:25 at 5 p.m. I think I've already mentioned that, but if I haven't, that's here. It lays it out for you. I think I gave you kind of an overview before in a previous panel in this introductory video that it would typically be a Tuesday afternoon at 5 p.m. that your discussion board substantial paragraphs, responses as I'm calling them, answer/response would be due by 5 o'clock of the Tuesday in question. That is the case here. A substantial paragraph that is well written, makes claims, and supports its claims by citing and quoting textual evidence. And this response, right, trifles might be involved in this as well, because I would like you by Tuesday at 2 o'clock, 1:59 p.m. to read Glaspell's Trifles. So our first discussion board will mostly cover Antigone. We'll also cover trifles and also those readings, right? What that did, honestly, the trifles will probably be involved in some of the responses as well that I can imagine some of you guys writing, right, might want to make reference to trifles. But there'll probably be at least one question that will involve trifles, right? What you will see is that there's a quiz on Tuesday by midnight, right, as well. So Tuesday is kind of a busy day in this class, right? Tuesdays will be busy days in this class. So we'll have a quiz on Tuesday, over there in the right-hand column, if you will see. That will be due by midnight under assessments again, just like quiz 1. You just repeat what you did the week before, right? Although you had your first quiz on Thursday, this will be your second quiz, which will be on Tuesday of next week. And again, you'll have the 25 minutes. You need to start by 11:35 at the latest. That quiz will cover just trifles, not the essays read by Friday and not Antigone, okay? This is a quiz that's unusual in that sense, since it's a bi-weekly module that we're doing 2 weeks. I have to make sure to specify that very carefully for you, what's on this quiz. It will be just trifles on quiz 2. Okay, so Thursday, if you look over in the left-hand column again, there'll be a second video PowerPoint that will be marked probably 200 intro space vid2, right? So that's next week when you'll have another video to watch that will be not introductory. I call it intro vid2. It'll have a little bit of an introductory quality to it, but will be focused on the works that we've been reading as opposed to the rigmarole of the class. And then going over into the right-hand column, by Thursday, 1:27 at 5 p.m., the comment will be due, right, that I told you a little bit about previously. And once again, I'll give you some instructions actually on the discussion board itself so that you will know exactly what to do, right? So then you'll be done with the module. Thursday there at 1:27 at 5 p.m., you're done for the week. Though Friday, again, it says move on to module 1. What module 1 will indicate to you is obviously what to read, right? But it will also tell you, well, you don't even need to be told this. You can just know to expect that your next module, the discussion board associated with the next module, will have questions beginning to be available on the Friday after that Thursday. Every Friday by noon, there'll be at least one question available, and that'll be the question that will be involved in the next module. Okay, well, you, again, may have some questions about all this. What I have found is that once you get busy doing this stuff, it just we all fall into a very productive and constructive routine very quickly, okay? So without further ado, I will say bye for now, encouraging you to move on to the next panel as I do. Yeah, so we're back to the Kafka Metamorphosis opera. Can you believe it? The Royal Opera House. Maybe we'll listen to that, a portion of it later on semester. Yeah, well, I'm going to let you go now. If you have any questions what to do next, let me know. My first response will be probably take a look at the pre-module, because you probably can figure it out. I'm guessing that most of you are not going to have a lot of difficulty, negotiating your way through and determining what it is that's being asked of you.
So take a good look at it now before you send me a message, but don't hesitate to send me a message if one persists beyond a close look at the information that's been set up for you. Okay? I'm looking forward to a great semester with you all, and as you can tell, I'm very excited about the possibility of reading Kafka with you and sharing this extraordinary work of 20th century literature with you. Oh, one more thing, right? We mentioned this business about the office hour. Uh, if you're not free at 1 p.m. on Tuesdays, would you drop me a line over Outlook? Okay, now I make it 20 out of 23. I don't know. But drop me a quick email message. I could reschedule that. That is very tentative, right? And I might be able to find an hour where more people are free, right? And not have to make it like Saturday morning at 10 o'clock. And if this turns out that we can't really find one of these hours where a lot of people are free, don't sweat it if you're one of the ones who's not free, because we can rely upon appointments, which work very well. You just send me a message and say, can you talk today at 3:30? I say, sure, or I say, no, but what about tomorrow at 2? And we work something out and we, get to have our conversation. So let's be cool about that. I think it's going to work out. You will see, as I say below, wouldn't it be nice to, in this COVID era of social distancing, I think it ought to be called spatial distancing, this COVID era of social distancing, right, where in fact we have been effectually socially distanced one from the other. Again, I would prefer the phrase I accidentally used a moment ago, spatial distancing. I think I would prefer, right, because need there be social distancing. In any event, we have been socially distanced to the point, by these asynchronous formats that it's conceivable that I wouldn't even know what you looked like. And that's not exactly like the academic ideal, I think, right? So let's see whether we can set something up at some point. Don't sweat this one either. If you've got something to do, you want to remain fairly anonymous, you will be able to. This is optional. But I think it's something we ought to try to do at some point, early on too, not like after 5 or 6 weeks. So have a good week. You, I think, know what to do. You have a quiz on Tuesday at 2 o'clock. Read a lot between now and then. Make sure to take your quiz. I'll be back in touch by way of these videos as well as by way of Outlook before you know it. So bye-bye.